Hi from Hanoi in Vietnam. My name is John Keogh, and welcome to another 10 by 10 series. In this series, I'll speak with 10 experts for 10 minutes on different aspects of the digital transformation of the agri-food sector in emerging economies. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with me Dr. Zaffar Mehmood from Pakistan. Good morning.
Good morning, John. Thank you for having me here.
I'm delighted to have you and very curious about our conversation today. So in the first minute, the time goes very, very quickly. So in the first minute, tell us a little bit about you and also your company.
Yeah, thank you, John. I am Dr. Zaffar Mehmood. I have a PhD in food science from Australia, and I've been working in this academic sector for 15 years as an associate professor for food safety and quality management. But then I switched my career towards independent consulting. So I am consulting for the government of Pakistan, for different regulatory agencies in Pakistan. And we do a lot of development stuff.
Wonderful. So I'm curious, Pakistan, emerging economies, agri-food, digital transformation, how does it work? What are the challenges and opportunities for countries like Pakistan?
Yeah, I would like to say that there is a massive opportunity for digitalization in the whole supply chain, especially this regulatory system in Pakistan has recently evolved to a very strong regulatory system. And if we talk about, I'll cover all the aspects of this. Overall, the potential, the area of potential, in the whole supply chain. So in Pakistan, if you talk from the government perspective, they've got a lot of interest, especially having digitalization, because of one of the major reasons is the food security. So they would want to have a certain dashboard where they can look at the availability of the food material for its masses. So they are interested in making the dashboards, especially the flood situation nowadays and the corona epidemic that has disrupted all this supply chain. So government have got serious interest. The development sector is really interested. Then there are a lot of food insecurities in terms of deficiencies in the nutrients. For example, there are a lot of fortification regulation in the country. It's becoming very hard for the country to actually make sure that products are fortified. So they are looking for the digital solution. The development sector is really helping Pakistani government in making up those digitalized solution for making sure that the food is fortified. They are mandatory fortification thing. Government is also interested for the revenue generation from the food ministry as well. So that's another area that is mostly overlooked, and they have got very strong interest in tax collection and the revenue collection. Another thing, if you look from the purely regulatory perspective, very recently the government has introduced that the traceability of the whole supply chain is a legal requirement. But unfortunately, no industry, yet has developed the traceability system, and that's if you look at the overall why the system of food safety is broken in a country, the most single important reason would be traceability, because there is no traceability mechanism that can guarantee that the food that reaches to you is safe. It complies to the claim. For example, there are a lot of market potential for the products which are halal, which are vegan, which are organic, or which originate from certain regions. So a lot of claims are made by the food industry, but they are not substantiated by the traceability mechanism. So huge potential for the traceability, and there have been certain blockchain technologies that were tested on a very smaller scale on this as well.
So
coming to
the parts you mentioned on government are very realistic for emerging economies, because they have to organize trade, right? They have to know who's trading out there, register those companies and get them paying tax, which is very important. In a lot of countries that I'm involved in, companies are not engaged in the tax system for whatever reason. So I think that's very important as a starting point. And then the other key point you mentioned from an industry perspective, industry now have to comply with government regulations for traceability, but it's hard to do. So can you speak a little bit about what are the challenges for industry in moving towards digital technologies for traceability?
Yeah, if you talk about the top tier companies, they do have a certain mechanism in place where they can reach to data points. For example, we have got very massive structure for this dairy and the meat industry, dairy would be the largest one, so there's a huge collection system, the milk has to travel a lot of very, very long distance, from one place to another. So the bigger industry, especially the dairy industry, they would have certain mechanism for the traceability thing. But the smaller and the medium scale organization, they haven't really thought about it, because this availability to the data points, the information, the overall integration of the whole supply chain, because the information they get from the agriculture farmer, their subsistence farmer, so the getting data from that is quite challenging. Then the middleman, the middle markets, extremely challenging, because this is not integrated at all. So for a medium level company, it would be a very tough challenge to reach to those data points where they can integrate those things. So they have to work from right from the scratch, from the very beginning, from the farm to fork actually. And most of the safety challenges even come, from the farm as well. And that has we have tried several times to correct this issue, but the small subsistence farmer and adding too much pesticide and the heavy metals and all the other toxicant that can get into your food right from the farming, that is very, very hard to trace. So that's unfortunately is a challenge that I would say is the foremost challenge to reach to digital data points, and the willingness. And language barrier is another thing, because people, would not be, mostly farmers would not be understanding English language as well. So local languages, the translation into that would help those small farmers to come into this integration as well.
Yeah, that's important. Something that's often overlooked is that in countries like Pakistan and India, China even as well, that there are so many different languages, not dialects, but different languages that need to be catered for sure. So what do you think, Zaffar, what do you think is the role of government in enabling digital transformation for those small farmers? And also, what do you think of the role of the big companies who work and maybe source products from them? Do both of those players have a role to play?
Yeah, the government actually is always interested, because normally they offer a lot of subsidies because of food insecurity reasons as well, and that can be optimized if they have the proper systems. They can have support system as well. The good thing about Pakistan is a massive population. The younger generation make a very significant portion of the population. They have got university education as well. Now there are a lot of startups coming in. They can channelize those forces and get these people into this new startup culture in the country. I think that is the massive potential for the government to look into it, and they can take a lot of benefit in terms of revenue, the food safety, the public health costs can be reduced. So massive challenge for them, massive opportunity for them as well. For the bigger companies, again, I would say, this adoption, we are at the very early stage of adoption. So anybody was taking initiative, the early player in the market, they would gain a huge benefit, because there's a massive trust deficit in the consumers as well. So if we can develop a system, that can build that trust through the traceability system and the, integration of food supply chain, where consumer can have their voice as well, and they can look at the products, whether they're safe, they are true to the label as well. So that is a massive potential. And I've seen, in the last 10 years, I would say that this startup culture is growing. The university graduates, they are coming into this field because there's not too many jobs in the government sector as well. So now the interest is moving, and there's a very good, I would say, market for the new startup companies as well. So the bigger companies coming from other, the resourceful companies can make a lot of, benefit and revenues by investing into these kind of technologies.
Gotcha. We have about a minute and a half left, but I wanted to mine in a little bit. You mentioned something that's very near and dear to my heart, the trust deficit with consumers. And I think you and I both believe that digital technologies can help in the process to, traceability of a product and also verified claims. What needs to occur? Is there a single action or momentum that needs to occur in Pakistan for this momentum to start to grow, where consumers are, demanding more trusted information from the industry?
I think that would be the winning point for any industry if they can develop that kind of confidence in the consumer, because there's a massive trust deficit, because there's so much adulteration, the fake products, counterfeit products, they are flooding the market, and the consumer is very scary as well. So they do not trust the the corporate sector or the middle, the small and medium enterprises as well. So, and the reason is because they do not have any say. They cannot look at, any, for example, any tools by which they can authenticate any product, whether the information is there is good enough or not, whether it's ethical, whether the claims, that are made on the label, are they true or not, So this is only way if we can, integrate this traceability system or AI into this overall, supply chain, that would be extremely helpful for the consumer as well as for the industry as well.
Wonderful. Folks, there you go. There you have it, all the way from Pakistan, Dr. Zaffar Mehmood, with some tremendous insights into the functioning of Pakistan. And in this 10 minutes, some really clear points about digital transformation in an emerging economy. Thank you so much, Dr. Mehmood, for joining me this morning.
My pleasure, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you.